All right. We're here. Welcome to today's episode of the TruYou Unfiltered Podcast. In this episode, scaling Bulu with the realities of entrepreneurship and multi-channel fulfillment. We're diving into the world's logistics, entrepreneurship, and scaling businesses with a special guest who knows the ins and outs of growing from the ground up, from launching Bulu in Nebraska's apartment to partnering with giants like American Express, BuzzFeed, and Disney. Our guest has built a thriving business by helping companies ship like major brands along the way. He's fine-tuned his process, embraced innovation, and learned valuable lessons in both life and business. Get ready for a real no-hold backing conversation about kitting multi-channel order fulfillment and what it takes to make it happen. So, guys, welcome Paul Jarrett to the show. What's happening, man?
How you doing, man?
I'm ecstatic that you're on here, man. Because
yeah, man, thanks for having me on. I'm pumped.
Yeah, dude. Fun. So like a couple of things, obviously we have a process where you fill out the form. There's different things you find out along the way too. And I will say that I am pumped about how much things we have in common and how you've been able just to simplify, going from one of the few first subscription boxes and channeling like your marketing background. With that being said, and by the way, just even a side note to that, like 2 side notes is like, you can, as a marketer, I feel like we can overcomplicate things a lot of times because we get so excited. Yeah. And so then having you been able to create a product, but then streamline it, so simplifying like that thing in itself, was just amazing to me because we have a marketing company, and I'm telling you, I wish I focused on taking things out rather than adding more things.
Absolutely. It's still hard, man. It's still hard.
Yeah, man. So you started this with your wife, right? And you all met at a marketing agency. You all work.
Yeah, exactly. We actually I first met her. She was the president of the advertising club at the University of Nebraska. So I was playing football at Iowa State, and then I gave that up, and I transferred to the University of Nebraska. And I picked the first major that didn't have math in it, so it was advertising. Started at the A's, right? And figured I better like commit myself. I'm no longer kind of a student athlete or athlete student. And so I went and I thought I better get involved with marketing club, advertising club, and saw her as president, and it was over. And I think she hated me for the first like 2 or 3 years. So her brothers were all kind of like meathead jocks, and so she just totally assumed that's kind of who I was. But
who's this guy hopping in?
Yeah, we worked on a few projects there, and then I got a job at an ad agency, and she applied there, and she almost didn't take the gig because I worked there.
And was this in Nebraska too?
This was in Nebraska, and so she took the job there. And we just worked on a bunch of projects that like went incredibly well, and kind of worked, I think, for 2 years together. And then we connected and went out a couple of times. And then 3 months later, I proposed. And then right after that 3 months, we like moved off to New York, and we started working in like New York ad agencies. And and then we did New York, San Francisco, kind of did different advertising agencies where like she was on the creative side and I was on the account side, or vice versa.
Okay. She was optimizing the ads basically.
Yeah. Like,
she was like giving you the stuff to optimize them.
Yeah. Well, I was a lot of times like, doing like working with a media buying team, and then like doing project management, and she was doing like art direction. And then, other agencies, like I was like, we're one of the few people that I've been a copywriter and an account executive, and she's been an art director and an account executive or whatever. So we like flip-flop both the creative and account side. And then there were times where I was a client and she was at the ad agency. So our entire career, we've worked with each other in some form.
You all had no chance of
and then I feel like it got to the point where we were like, man, this is crazy. We're working like 60, 80 hours a week. Like we just enjoyed work. And we were both moving up like really quickly in kind of our market respective worlds. And finally, we just kind of decided like, let's make a run at it. And we actually thought we were going to start an ad agency. And that was kind of always the plan. And we were
What year was that? you think?
This would be whatever 12 years ago is.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too, because like that's when a lot of them were starting to pop up, you know.
Yeah, we were getting paid crazy money, and we were getting freelance work from NFL and Visa to essentially do Facebook pages, and we're adding like games to Facebook pages. And it was just so easy because you could do anything on social media and everybody thought it was hard, but we're just like
Yeah.
plugging in apps and charging like 60K, you know?
Yeah.
And then I think we kind of saw that our skill set, like, I guess what I really liked was working with concrete numbers. And I always kind of thought like, man, if I could work on a product where I can see X amount of the widgets go out the door and connect that to like the advertising spend, I'd never liked the kind of ethereal kind of, branding, like, oh, if it's red, you're going to sell more, or if it's whatever. Like, I wanted like the numbers, And so one day we were running like a half marathon and we got all these samples. And I was like, this is crazy that nobody's taking our emails or anything for these samples. And one thing came to another, and we came up with the idea for Bulu Box, which was a subscription box of sample vitamins and supplements. Try them out, come to our website and buy. And it was kind of game over after then. And we raised $1 million in capital before we sold a thing, which is crazy to me still.
Yes.
That anybody gave us $1 million before.
Oh, and it's crazy too, because like this is like a new trend y'all are picking up on.
Oh yeah.
Right? We didn't even touch on that. Like that's like you could count on how many subscription boxes were on your fingers, right? Like,
yeah, we were number 6. There was 5 makeup and beauty boxes. And I kind of knew through my experience with work that whatever was popular in makeup and beauty, vitamins and supplements was about a year or 2 behind. And so I saw all these subscription boxes, and I remember I searched for a vitamin and supplement box. And I always tell people, I'm like, how many times have you searched an idea on Google and it exists and there's like 10 of them and you're like, oh crap. I'm like, imagine having like one of your best ideas ever and searching and there's nothing there. This like overwhelming sense of like, oh no, we got to go fast before somebody else does it. And that was kind of the big pitch to venture capitalists, was like, you got to give us the money now because somebody else is going to do it. And so we were like the 6th subscription box on the market, and it cost nothing to get subscribers. I mean, it was
back
crazy.
in the good old days. So Facebook, for example, you put $1 in, you see 1 million people. Like
it was like literally it would be like 81 cents. And then I remember when like our customer acquisition costs got close to $5, and we're like really upset. And then it got over $10. And then I think now for like a subscription box, it's probably hovering around $30 to $50, like customer acquisition.
I wanted to ask you that too, man, because I've even, like I was telling you just as a side conversation before we did this podcast, is like, I wonder, like, because I'm exploring the performance stuff too, and it's kind of cool that you were going to potentially even start this before Bulu. It's like, if you had to be a performance-based type of marketer, like where would you go? What type of companies would you go into, especially with all your experience? You're starting over, you have a good skill set. Where would you go?
Like what channel would I go to?
Channel or type of business, maybe, to like, if you were going to get paid on a performance basis.
I would, this sounds like,
curveball.
It's like one of those things, like, I don't want to say it, but like, I'd probably do a mix of 3 things. I would probably do the classic, like, email spamming stuff, like, sure, just because it works. And if you send out a bajillion emails, you're going to get X% of calls. And I think that would be like my baseline product that I would go kind of sell. And then I think the thing on top of that I would sell is doing like social media for like a personality within the company. Because what we found is that that it's really hard to do social media for a company. I mean, it's not hard to do it, but if you compare like me as CEO of Bulu versus Bulu on social media, like, it's so much easier. So I think we would go to those companies.
Okay, like they
would offer like email marketing for, and we'd be like, let us take over the CEO's social media. Because I think there's a high return on that. And then I think we do something weird, like probably get in early on like live selling trend. And not even do it as like live selling, but just like look at it like an opportunity to get the brand out early on a channel. So I'd probably do something safe, something that I'm pretty sure that works, and then something that's a bit of a curveball. And then whichever one of those things produces the most amount of money, I'd probably just like 0 and 100% on that channel.
You tied. There's two things I want to make sure I ask. The first thing is like when the journey with like your wife and you were working on various different projects. I'm curious to see if those past projects, like maybe your top favorite projects you could think of that you were doing either in Nebraska or your time throughout the agencies. I wonder if those kind of link to like your favorite or like different verticals that you would do.
Absolutely.
So what would be like what was like your favorite couple of projects that come to mind when you were working with?
Yeah, I loved, I worked on a project for Virgin and like Richard Branson. It was I think it's like the launch of the cell phones. And I loved that their requirement was that they wanted 10,000 angry mothers to call because it was offensive. And that like always stuck with me because we came up with this idea of like, basically it was a Christmas campaign of like Santa, Jesus, like all the like religious figures were selling you a cell phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and just like working with it with the team and really understanding at the time, because like guerrilla marketing and that offensive marketing, like it was really early. This is probably back in like 2002. And it was like kind of this attitude of like, do whatever it takes to get clicks or get views. And that was very foreign to me. And it was just fun thinking of like all of this offensive stuff. And that really stuck with me because on social media, I'm kind of not afraid to like voice an opinion and have an opinion. And I think also some of the clients we work with, like we're always pushing them outside of their comfort zone. And we try not to get involved in marketing, but if like sales are really like lagging on a product and we can see it, we'll be like, why don't you try this? And then I would say that the other project would probably be a branding project that I did. It was like a branding project that I did with Stephanie. And really, we took an ice cream company that was really old. Nobody knew what it was. They never had like a public brand. And we put like a really awesome brand together for it. And they actually, in the pitch, they took our pitch materials and they picked up the phone and they called Ben and Jerry's or Breyers and said, look at this ad campaign we're coming at you with. And it scared them so bad that they acquired the company. So like our pitch to this company was acquired.
Dude, it's huge.
And that hit me as like, holy cow, if there's good branding and a good story, like that can get the attention of anybody, you know? And then I'd say like overall, the big thing that I took away from working in New York and San Francisco that's helped me the most is that those people in the executive rooms with the hundreds of $1,000,000 in ad campaign budget versus the like local guy with the sandwich shop, there's not a lot intelligence wise that like separates those people. Like the people.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Like
dive into that. I'm down to clown
I've
on that.
never been, and it really reduced the intimidation factor of like just picking up the phone and like selling to Disney or selling to GNC or Clorox or whoever, because you really understand like the only thing that's separating a lot of those people at those big brands is that like they went for it and they spent the time doing it. But like, you know, a Harvard MBA or whatever versus a local entrepreneur, I'd take the local entrepreneur every time, you know? And I think that like breaking down the walls and seeing like even how decisions were made, like, you know, multi-million-dollar ad campaigns so many times come down to like, well, I don't know, I like purple more.
Yeah.
Like that's what it is.
Yeah, the
Like,
dollar,
like
they have so much to spend.
Yeah, like I got
And
my
so
way
it's
to
all
the
good.
top in New York City at an ad agency called BBDO, which is like the world's most awarded ad agency. And it was kind of like, this is it? Like, that's the creative genius? Like, that's the, like, oh, this is not it. it wasn't nearly as mind blowing as I
And
thought.
I always tell people that like I've coached a lot of just up and coming marketers in the past with
Right.
specifically the paid ads. But I always tell people like you have no idea how much you actually know.
Right.
And then you go to either a simple local business owner, or in this case with you, taking that to the entirely next level.
Yeah.
And then just exposing them. That's how I see it, man. I feel like you're on the and saying red and purple don't matter, bro. What's the concrete numbers, man? Don't tell me your cost per acquisition.
Yep.
Tell me exactly what that means and how did you come up with that? And purple, and let me show you how purple and blue don't matter. Like,
dude, that's exactly. I remember when we were building Bulu box, and there was like this moment in time because Stephanie, who my co-founder / wife, she was building out the website, and I was like, man, make the buy button bigger. And she's like, what? And I was like, I don't know, like it feels like it needs to be bigger. And she like goes on this rant about design and stuff, right? And sales were kind of like doing they were like, okay. And then I kept pushing her. I was like, I think we just need to put in it. And it's something that we would have never recommended to a client because we would have been like, oh, the brand, this, that bullshit, like whatever.
yeah.
And then finally we A/B tested it. And like, guess what? The big red button in the middle of the screen sold way more. And I remember she looked at me like, yeah, screw design, like put the big red button on there. And it was like this moment in time where your decisions are much different when it's your own money, versus like somebody else's money. And it was kind of the moment that we both like converted to like, man, let the data drive your decision. Like, who cares?
Oh, so how many years was that, by the way? And like you
That
said,
was like 12 years ago.
Okay, and that tracks even with me. So like, just I'll even expose myself real fast. Like I didn't have two things. One, salespeople submitting a daily end of month report of how many dials they did down to, calls closed, all that stuff. Didn't have that. I didn't have a dashboard reporting to that. I was basically just kind of like, we spend this much, we have to close 2 clients.
Yeah.
And it was that simple.
Yep.
But then it's like, okay, what about leading a team and hiring and firing and all that stuff? And and just trying not to get too emotional, because you can like, I feel like I'm a likable person. I got you on here after all, like, but like, I'm just going to say that like making those data-driven decisions, whether it's marketing, hiring, sales, whatever, that I think that's been a good thing for me even this year, doing time audits for myself and all that jazz. Again, that's kind of cool that around that time, and I'm kind of like in that area. It's kind of like comforting in effect. So props to you, man. I'm glad I'm doing something right.
I remember what was it? Well, I guess one of the things where I'm like, this stupid like spin the wheels, like you go to the website. Those work so well. Like every client, I'm like, dude, just put spin the wheel on there. Like, oh yeah. I'm like, do you have any idea how many emails you collect after the stupid spin the wheel?
It's a game.
Who cares?
Yeah.
So I'm all for spin the wheel for sure.
I forget about all those too, because you don't see that as much anymore. I don't remember what site I was on, and it could have been actually. Do you all have one on your site now?
What?
Spin the wheel or anything like this?
It
could be like way off. Okay, it's okay. I believe I saw some.
We should though. I guess I've only think of it for consuber packaged goods company. I'm like, we should totally have one on our website.
I know, right? I know. Business owners would love that. I don't even know. Get a hat. Get some merch after you buy whatever, right?
Totally. Yeah.
All that stuff. So you all are now letting the data go into the story a little bit. Just want to dive into like the poke and the personal side of things, especially with me I've been married for about 5 years now. So maybe that kind of, because y'all been married for over 12 years at least, right?
About 16 years, yeah.
16, okay.
17?
Yeah. How did the data go into that as far as you all solving problems together?
Yeah, like how do we work together?
In your marriage, yeah, man, the relationship side of things. Share as much as you want for sure, but I felt like that was a cool little moment too, because I could see like you all talking in a work space.
Yeah. I think that like I'd say overall, when it's going awesome, it's incredible. When it's not going well, it's terrible. And I'd say out of 12 years, it was really only the pandemic years that we weren't seeing eye to eye on things. And it was rough. It was not good. And we're the first to say, like, pandemic, everybody was messed up, and I wanted to go one direction. She wanted to go another, but everybody, people were just scared. But I would say overall, like, that's the general thing is, like, when it's going well, it's awesome. When it's not going well, it's not that awesome. But I think that the thing that I think about the most is the first 3 or 4 years, there was a lot of back and forth. And then we actually, and we would have these moments of growth and time in the company. But then it would get stagnant really quickly. And I would say, like, side note, like, there's no separation between work-life balance when you work with your wife. Like, there's no, like, you go home talking
That's what I'm
about it,
getting at.
whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you
Man.
just got to learn how to say, like, I don't want to talk about work right now, and just, like, be okay with it. But one of the things that helped us a ton was actually this system called EOS Worldwide. It's called Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's eosworldwide.com. I don't get paid by them. And it seems kind of cheesy, but really what it did for us was it helped us lay, like, lines of accountability. And, the kind of the book and the model really pushes you. It's like, hey, Stephanie has internal design final approval. You can't have two people doing it. And I got to learn how to say, like, if she wants to, have the final say on the logo or whatever, I just have to shut up and trust it. Right. And really, like, it kind of gives a guideline for that. And then I think one thing,
by the way, EOS.
EOS,
I'm
Entrepreneurial.
gonna Google that while I'm listening.
Yeah, it seems cheesy, but it's an incredible. It basically is like 30 tools on how to run a company, and really, it's probably the best tool I've learned for scaling internally.
Is it EOS, like entrepreneurial operating system?
Yep, that's it.
No way, it's like orange.
Yep. Yeah, it looks kind of cheesy, but it's an awesome conceptually. So, okay. And then I'd say the other thing. Before we started, we talked to some other entrepreneur couples, and one couple had some really good advice, which was like, basically draw the line on, like, when is it too much and, like, what happens, like, and so Stephanie and I basically decided early on that either one of us can look at each other and just say, I'm out. And the other one can't ask any questions. It just has to accept that they want out of the business. And I think that really helped us, like, always knowing that kind of you have that emergency eject button, and there were times that we've, like, looked at each other and been like, are you out? Like, is this the button, and it'd be like, I don't know, I need a couple of days to think about it. And I think that too many couples that I know, they make it their life and there seems like no way out. And I think everybody needs to have that escape button. And if either one of us ever said I'm out, like, we know for a fact that the other person would say, okay, do you want to talk about it? And if the other person said no, like, that would just be that, because that was the agreement that we had, like, going into it. So I think putting that line down and having that eject button, it was really healthy for both of us to kind of know that in the back of our minds. Yeah. And then I'd say overall, the thing that's the coolest though, is we ran a business for about 8 years before we had kids. And I'll tell you what, man, it made having kids really easy. I mean, there's still hard, like, getting up and, like, whatever, but, like, sure, when you learn to manage, like, hundreds of people and all,
they say it's like babysitting.
I'm telling you. And
glorified babysitting.
Yeah. And then you have kids and you're just like, you learn how to say no. And yeah, it made parenting and raising kids and kind of creating, again, accountability. And we came up with, like, a really simple plan. She has 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. with the baby, and I have 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And it was like, that's that. And, like,
really, you were the night owl.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you always been the night owl, just in general, or what?
Unfortunately, but I would also say Stephanie is not. She needs her 8 hours. and we both, I can go off of, naps and, like, whatever and all that stuff. So it was more of a, she's not going to do good at 12 in the morning. And I'm like, dude, I'm cool with it, so yeah.
That's great. Yeah, because like that's kind of like our dynamic. It's been kind of funny. So you before we hopped on and talked about like we talked briefly about jiu-jitsu and
Yeah.
so that's like something really close to me. It's helped out with like entrepreneurship. It
Yeah.
was something that um like in high school I played soccer at a pretty high level.
Yep.
Got to go overseas for it for a little while.
Oh, that's cool, man.
But then just burnt out from it all, man.
Yeah.
Playing since I was a kid. I mean, I used to absolutely love it. Like I had freaking ex-girlfriends who'd make fun of me because I'd be living at the soccer field, bro. Like it was bad,
Yeah,
man.
same with me in football. I get it.
And so like now that I do jiu-jitsu, I wish I wrestled in high school, by the way.
Yeah.
This is a side note. I think I was just too proud with the
Singlet?
outfit. But yeah, I'd be playing soccer,
You
right?
know, you know
I
what,
got
man?
made fun of for that too. So no matter what, I was gonna get made fun of.
My kids are gonna wrestle because I've said like the fastest way to kind of like self-reflect or kind of like change that internal voice is, to be a grade school or a high school wrestler and you're standing there in your singlet in front of a crowd of people and you just got your ass kicked in front of your father or your parents or whatever, and you're just completely defeated and you're in this stupid like singlet. I'm
It
like,
ain't easy being
it's a
green.
really quick way to like question your life and to be okay with getting your butt kicked. Yeah,
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 and like what I was saying too, like originally it was just like I'm fortunate that the gym I have has 6 a.m. classes,
yeah.
so I'll get done with work and I'll have that time before like 6 and like 10 to hang out with kids, then
Mm-hmm.
go to bed, wake up at roughly around 5:30 ish Tuesday through Fridays, for class.
Yep,
And but it wasn't always like that. I mean, my dad was in the military.
yep,
So like growing up, I always had, that type of influence to get up early and go run.
yeah.
But I lost it along the way a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, like finding that rhythm for like I think really helped me out now as a dad. But at the
Yeah,
same time, I can still do the things I like while running a business and then trying to be a good spouse, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
so, she's starting to kind of get into business right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Specifically like the travel agency type stuff. We like to
Interesting.
travel. It just makes sense. It's just
Yeah,
like, hey, we're gonna book a hotel. Might as well just do it through you real quick,
yeah,
right? make
yeah,
make a little bit of money.
yeah,
Um, but it's kind of cool. So it's cool because she's starting to kind of see those influences with that, and um, I've always been itching at it, and I was gonna create an e-commerce brand, which is why I want to bring it back to Bulu.
yeah,
Is What are your thoughts around like the drop shipping stuff? We've tried. We didn't necessarily do it. We
yeah,
were almost about to do it, but it was going to be called Adventure Made because we like
yeah,
traveling, and we were going to sell exclusively travel products, and then we just travel and we just try different
yeah.
things, and we can share that there's the brand story, I guess you could say. But like, do you guys typically work a lot with shippers, or is it more like it's not necessarily like there's not really like a middleman
Yeah. Well,
necessarily?
there's like the drop shipping it's taken this like broad, almost like definition of it, right? And in logistics, you
Okay,
have to be like really specific on language.
right on.
So like, there's the drop shipping that I see like on YouTubers and they're like, buy this stuff, never touch it, sell it, like whatever. Um, we get those calls a lot, and very rarely do I see anybody making enough margin, to whatever. Like this
Yeah.
is still an industry where you got to kind of like buy in bulk and then, get the price down and sell it. But the people that we work with, for the most part, we work with like a lot of vitamin supplement health brands. Hulk Hogan's one of the brands that we work with. So
Yeah.
yeah, he does all of his beer one place. He does all of his merch with us. Ryan Trahan, Joyride Candies. Ryan Trahan's got like, I don't know, like I think 20 million YouTube subscribers, and he like is selling a candy online, and we do all the shipping for him. But the way that we work with people is, they buy their product, they ship it to our warehouse, we store it here, we pack it, we ship it for them. But the big difference is that we ship both B2B and D2C. Most companies like us either only ship to like Target and Walmart and B2B, or they ship like e-commerce direct to homes. And the fact that we do both, and then top it off with, we'll put it in any package you want. So just
Yeah.
having that like little bit of flexibility of like, we ship B2B, D2C and through social media, and we'll package it like however you want. That, it's as crazy as it sounds, that little bit of difference has drove us from, I think, 8 to like over 50 or 60 clients since January.
I could see how it could be a huge need. Which came first, though? Did you say D2C was the first?
Yeah, we
Is
were
a
doing,
Bulu,
I mean, yeah, what was interesting is like, we've always kind of done that and we just weren't marketing it correctly. We just weren't saying it. And, I did the whole like, get on the phone, talk to 200 clients. And I was just racking my brain because I kept, doing what everybody does, like make it more complicated, right? And then thought we needed like a better product offering or whatever. But I always forced myself, like if I hired a consultant, what would they tell me? And usually consultants, 9 times out of 10, they come in and they cut things down for you, right? And they tell you like what to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
And almost like on a whim, I was like, let's try. Well, the funny thing is our tagline is, we do the tricky ship. And we didn't actually know what we were doing. And that tagline was broad enough where we're like, we'll figure out what that means later. But that became the whole like, holy cow, fulfillment companies don't ship to stores, to customers' doors, and a lot of them don't integrate with social media. If we do those things, like, is that interesting enough for people? And like, man, once we got that message out, like our door just started getting beat down. I mean,
Now I see why people ask you all for marketing too. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, we get a lot of
like
calls.
Because you're doing the packaging, right? So your hand is already in the branding.
Yeah,
Simultaneously too. I didn't forget that neither, because now it's like both ends, and then integrating with social media, it's like you're already kind of helping them out with that.
What I love is that like we actually see the shipments going out, right? So we know if people are BSing or not, if their marketing works. Like let me tell you, YouTubers can sell a ton of product if you have the right setup, right? And then there's other clients where, there's some clients where I can't even mention their names.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and man, I wish I could, because
it's okay. Don't worry about it. What's going on?
They seem so big online, and you would think that they're selling an amazing, incredible amount of stuff. Yeah. And you're like, dude, they only shipped like 30 this month, and then it's like this crappy little supplement brand that you would never expect to sell anything is selling like 30,000 units a month.
And what's that tell you, man? What's that tell you?
It's wild. I mean, to me, I mean, what it really tells me is like, certain, like focusing on the right marketing channels works for people. Like, and the thing that I see is the people that are spreading out trying to accomplish everything in marketing really aren't doing that well. And there's somebody that just has a catalog and a good mailing list and they outsell everybody. So, but it's cool to see, like, watch their marketing and then, deep down, like if they're doing well or not. And then, you can kind of talk to other clients and be like, well, why don't you think about doing this thing? Because we're actually seeing what works and what doesn't work by the amount of shipments going out.
Well, like, I think you went back to like, okay, like I'm going to go back to you and your wife even said too about just the red button, or like the other design, finally letting the data tell you the story. I think, I'll just speak for myself. Like, I mean, the ego and pride gets in the way a lot of things. You think you know everything, and then you don't want to open up. And it's like, I know, like, I forgot who actually asked ChatGPT this, but it was like he was like, if you were the devil, how would you end the world or end the human race or something like that? And I'm going somewhere with this. Like he was like, I will seclude everyone. I would seclude and cause a lot of fear, uncertainty, and anxiety, basically. And it's like those three things is why a lot of the marketers, I mean, humans in general, probably struggle. But I think it's like, you've managed probably a lot of marketing dollars in the past, but also with yourself or everybody. But like, I mean, I'm sure you had to ask a couple other people, hey, look at this real quick and tell me what you think. But maybe there was a period of time where things weren't going so well and you refused to ask that simple question. And I'm gonna speak for myself and say that I definitely did that, and I
Yeah.
think the biggest thing that's been really helpful, even in today's like marketing side of things, is definitely having that good list. Because if the
Yep.
wifey wants something special, you just have to send a message out. That'll
Yeah.
help.
Yeah.
The other half is I've been really diving into the self-liquidating ad spend, like the front end low ticket upsell downsell funnels.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
find that's really getting interesting for me. Do you all ever do that at Bulu, or what's that look like? Because you all have
Which,
done paid ads for your company before.
yeah, we
So for
do.
subscription boxes, or
Yeah.
maybe a business like yours, to isolate
Yeah,
the
we do.
question maybe a little bit better, what's that
Yeah,
look
we do
like?
plenty of paid. And I'll tell you what, like, we found, I don't want to give away
No,
like,
you're fine. You're
like
fine.
all the
Yeah.
things that we're doing now. But I would say that like, um, the thing that's probably, I think, separated us as because like in our industry, like for our spend and for our return, like we're like murdering it compared to other like fulfillment companies. And I would say that the thing that probably like really separates us is that we're not like, we assume if we spend like, 10 grand, 20 grand, like just kiss that money goodbye. But like, what do you learn by blowing that money? And I think as a marketer, I mean, I remember working for a company, and in 1 month I like blew 250K and got zero sales attached to any of it. And I thought I was going to get fired. And the CEO comes by. I mean, I had my box packed. I was like ready to go. I was like the CMO. And he was like 250K. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, what do we get out of that? And I was like, nothing, man. He's like, did you learn anything? And I was like, yeah, don't hire like an expensive ad agency to do something and like not hold them to like some standards or whatever. Like I got kind of fooled by like a third party ad agency essentially. I was like, it was stupid or whatever. He's like, okay. He's like, well, don't let that happen again. And I was like, and months later, years later, he was just like explaining to me like he built his company by like kind of spending money and figuring out what worked. And like if you're not trying and you're not spending money and kind of like, I hate to say it, but like it feels like wasting money, like you're never going to figure it out. And I remember the first 50 grand we spent for Bulu Box was in podcasting, and it led to nothing. And I was like, man, what am I doing? But by spending that money, usually what you learn at the very least is like what not to do. But usually there's like a little nugget or something in there that you do learn. And I would say now, after everything that I've done, probably like marketing wise, this sounds silly, but I encourage people to do it. But if we ever have a marketing idea, branding concept, or whatever, I almost always put together 3 to 9 slides, and I call up people that I trust, and I'm like, let me run you through like problem solution, what I'm going to do. And then I just want to like shut up and like hear what you got to say. And I'll tell
Good.
you what,
Okay.
if I talk to like 50 people, sometimes I've talked to like 200 people, you get really interesting feedback. Like I remember one time I like had this like super awesome idea or whatever, and I was going like a million miles an hour talking to a bunch of people. I had my slide deck and I'm presenting or whatever, and it was actually one of my old bosses. He replied back to me. He's like, hey, this is awesome and everything, but like, why don't you just offer like to do fulfill, like have somebody send you the pallet for free and you do fulfillment on like one pallet for free, and like doesn't that make this whole ad spend and everything else like go away? And I was like, oh man, it was such a good idea. And I don't want to get into the details of it, but that essentially turned into a marketing email campaign where we basically said, hey, like send us a pallet, we'll show you how to use our system. And then really once they were in the system, like it worked. But it was like, my point is, it required a ton of money, a ton of everything, blah, blah, blah. And there was a lot of good feedback. But then there's this one person that was kind of like, just skip to the end and do that part. And I was like, damn it, like, you're right, And the
Taking
best
things out,
ideas
maybe
can,
taking things
yeah, and the
out.
best ideas can absolutely come from anywhere. But I get a ton of value in, like I said, like putting together a couple of slides and even just texting them to people and almost like I feel like my strategy now is like trying to make things as bulletproof as possible, where I'm like, please poke holes in it. Like, tell me how I'm wrong. And once you get over your ego, you can do those things.
There it is.
Yeah. Yeah. But man, there's, like I said, the things that we're doing now with like paid and search and like how we're getting people, there's no way if you would have told me 2 years ago, like, hey, do this thing, this is how you're going to get it. But it's wild.
That's legit. So, I mean, for people who are trying to get, I guess, get more products shipped out and sold, what I've gathered so far is at least one. I think having I'll call it a board of directors, but you can have your friend, you can have your grandma, you can have a bunch of people that you trust.
Yep.
Send some ideas to them and kind of get some feedback from there, and then not being afraid to take a batch of money and spend it just so get an idea of what the market's actually telling you fast. And then in a combination with that, obviously we've been talking about the list. I think it's huge for e-com brands in general because new product launch, new something.
Yeah.
Get some feedback. And I actually recently did that. I had this $27 bundle of courses, just basic branding stuff on social media and like paid advertising just to give to these financial professionals. I sent it out to like a few hundred people, got 4 sales. I was like, oh my gosh, this is proven to sell. Like, say less, Mazel Tov. And I could see exactly what you're saying with these e-com brands. So, they have to get shipments out. What are some things what are some pieces of advice that, just kind of building off this really, that could go to, your all's customers, whether it's B2B or D2C brands. They're just started, they got their shop lined up. They have, like I'll even give you this. They already have their attractive character, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
The person that is more attractive for that brand.
Yep.
And they're trying to get their first few sales.
Yeah.
What are they doing? And you can choose any type of vertical, any type of product if you want to use as an example, if that helps.
One thing that I highly encourage people to do, and I love it. I love when marketing lives in like a little bit of a gray area, right?
Yes.
Like it's like I think that if you look at some of the most amazing things that Dropbox or Airbnb or anybody has done, what's interesting is if they would have done those marketing tactics and it didn't succeed, like it's kind of sleazy. But if they did these marketing tactics and it succeeds, like they're genius, And one thing that it feels like is a little bit shady, but it's something that I've encouraged e-commerce brands to do is put the product up on your website and put a buy button and sell it like it's real. And you don't have to go buy the product. You don't have to have the product or anything. It can be a concept or like even some subscription boxes. I've like said, like just put like a mystery box in there, right? But make everything like the user journey and the advertising and everything exactly like you would in real life. And when they click to buy, just be like, sorry, we don't have this thing, like get in line. Right. And a lot of people, we did this with, I can probably share who it was now.
I can share my screen too, by the way, if you want me to pull up any websites just while we're here.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I would get that.
I don't know if that's okay or not.
Yeah. Well, I remember, I'll share like Scott's Miracle Grow. Like we had a pretty wild concept, that they were working on. And, we ended up being like our suggestion to them was like, because it was outside of their comfort zone, we're like, let's call it something else and not attach it to Scott's at all and just see if the product sells. And then if people actually do like it, then we can say like acquired by Scott's or bought by Scott's Miracle Grow or like whatever it is.
I love that.
Yeah. And so like, I think when you put something together or even like a vitamin or a supplement or a snack brand or like whatever, you can graphically create something. Because here's an interesting one. We worked with, back when we were doing subscription boxes, we worked with Power Bar. And they sampled a new product in all these Bulu boxes, 60,000 of them. And the data came back that like people absolutely, it was a runner's like energy gel.
And, like you do. Okay. Yeah.
Yep. And they put millions of dollars of time, effort, and research into this thing. And we sample it out and immediately we see like, holy crap, there's a giant plastic knob on it. Runners hate it. Like they thought, and their research showed that like it was easy to take off. But actually, when it got into runners' hands, they hated it because it was a lot of plastic. It was bad for the environment, as a ton of waste. And the runners like didn't know what to do with the knob after they took it off. And it was actually bulky and weird. We came back to them and we're like, hey, we hate to tell you this. People hate this product. And they were like, yeah, right. And they brought us in and they were annoyed. And they pretty much just told us to take a hike.
And and how'd you find out that they hated it, by the way? Like, what was that like? Because you told me like what happened, but like, were they just like returning it? Or they were sending reviews?
We put it in Bulu box. And if you would answer questions about the products, you would get rewards points to buy full size product on our website. Yeah.
Fun. So we learned, smart.
Yeah,
man.
we learned a lot.
Bro, that's fantastic. Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Good job, man.
Yeah. And so, sure enough, they launch it and the whole thing tanks. And I remember thinking like, why didn't they listen to me in the beginning when I was like, why don't you just put a visual of the product up with a giant knob and be like, hey, buy this? They would have just had consumer emails and feedback of like, how dare you? Those plastic knobs are bad for the environment. But no, they did it like the old school way where they spent millions, probably hired all these other companies.
Oh, Purple works.
Yeah, dude, like exactly. So I always encourage people like try to sell almost like a make-believe graphic version of it. And if you don't want to even associate your brand with it, just make a new website and make it something else. And if it works, then claim it. But you can kill off brand names all, as much as you want.
Yeah, I really love that because I did get a performance coach once, and he always told me, don't wait on perfection, focus on the one or two things that matter.
Yeah.
And God bless, man, that piece of advice right there, that one line, that could be a t-shirt. And you could just walk around saving people hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Like, we always say done is better than perfect in most cases.
Yeah, man, exactly. Yeah. Oh, that's so cool because you can just find out immediately. That's fantastic advice. I love that. And that's what we're playing around with too, just to kind of is like in my world, I guess you could say, if we're selling like a program, we'll have a presentation of sorts, and you can give people the presentation, the recording, and maybe like a bonus or something, and just sell it for $1 or $7 just to self-liquidate your stuff. And I helped out an e-commerce brand, and they're still in business. They're in the meal prep business, and it was really, really working well for us. So I'm getting into the offer realm.
Yeah,
is the free shipping on XYZ amount of amount purchased. However, the problem wasn't getting purchases. It wasn't. It was about making it profitable. We would get, like, if it was free shipping on $100 or more, cost per purchase may have been like $15 to $20.
Mm-hmm.
And then we could have gotten more, more than $100, but just to make the numbers easy. With all these shipping costs starting to rise up, I've talked to you about Shopify and all that jazz.
Yeah.
How are you guys combating the cost of shipping for these guys?
Yeah. One thing that we do that's way different than everybody else is everybody is focused on 2-day shipping. Okay. And it is highly competitive. And, one thing that we realized was like, hey, we're in Lincoln, Nebraska. We're in the middle of the country. What if we focused on 3 to 5 day ground shipping rates? Like nobody is trying to do that. And we quickly found out just by thinking a little bit differently, we actually get to 96% of the US in 2.5 days. And so we went with the 3 to 5 day shipping rates, which nobody goes after. And we got absolutely killer rates from, all the carriers, because they're kind of like, and meanwhile, we're letting all the other fulfillment companies fight for 2-day rates, which is just a bloodbath, right? And, pretty much like we go to our client, we tell them like up front, we're like, hey, like we do 3 to 5 day ground. And they're kind of like, oh yeah, well, we got it. And I'm like, hold on though, like 96% of our shipments are going to get there in 2.5 days. And if you make an order, we're getting it out by 11 a.m. the next day. So it's pretty much like 2 days anyway. So I think like, people forget to look like, what is their advantage geographically? And actually, this will be interesting for you. When we started 12 years ago, now given this person did a little bit better than I did,
Okay.
we were one of the very first users of Shopify.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we would pester Shopify so much that there was this guy that they'd send us in customer service, and his name was Toby. Well, Toby
God
was
bless
the founder
Toby.
of Shopify. It was actually Tobias, and
Oh, okay.
I remember early on he told me, he's like, "Hey man, if you want to make a ton of money, make a subscription app for Shopify. I think that's a good idea." And I was like, "This guy's so full of crap. Like, of course the customer service guy is going to tell me to make a subscription billing thing." Which we had made it one. We just didn't like make it as an app because they didn't even have apps. So like I should have did it. But after I kind of figured out who he was, I was able to get like one or two more. He's the coolest guy in the world, by the way.
Okay.
I was
Cool.
able to get like, as he was kind of taking off in Shopify was, I was able to talk to him. And one of the things that always resonated with me is he said, like, if you want to build $1 billion company, or if you know, like one of the main things that people don't consider is like geographically their location. And that had a big impact on me, because if you looked at a lot of the companies that grow or whatever, there's something geographically that makes them successful. And we were in, we did a subscription box, and then we actually built a software, which is now called rangeme.com. But it made me realize, like, I'm not going to probably get the best developer talent in Nebraska. Like, what am I doing here? Like, what is something that we can be really great at in Nebraska? Like, what is Nebraska good at? And transportation and logistics is by far the top. So like, it made us kind of transition from a subscription box, and then on the side we had software that we built and sold. And now we're in the logistics industry, and just things that come up is like the 2.5 days, or there's tons of warehouse. And so geographically we're at a huge advantage, because that little bit of advice from somebody that was like, don't discredit where you are and think about geographically, what do you have that nobody else has? So a little bit of, just
That
like
has
a
my
little like
wheels
offshoot
turning.
from Toby. And I was like, man, that guy, he's a beast. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. Definitely. Yeah. Like that. I mean, even I'm thinking about this right now because I'm in Kentucky. I'm out of Louisville, Kentucky, right?
Yep.
You think it KFC and you think of
Yep.
bourbon and Kentucky Derby. Like that's like the main three things you think of a lot of the times. And it's like, I'll have to
Can you use those to your advantage?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a company called Huddle that's in Lincoln, Nebraska. And they got their success by they worked at the University of Nebraska for the Husker football team. And they saw people running tapes back and forth, and they thought, man, if we can digitize and break up plays and do it all digitally, that would be something. And Huddle is massive now, and they do like all the high school football games and everything like that. But again, it was like geographically, Husker football is huge here. And, everybody wanted to invest in the company because I had just something to do with Husker football. So I think people don't spend enough time thinking like, what's my advantage geographically?
Yeah, look inward versus outward, I guess almost you could say. Yeah. You're seeing what everyone else has. The grass is greener.
Yep.
And here it's bluer. Like that's what we are, bluegrass state.
There you go.
Is Lincoln, Nebraska more of like a country, college or NFL?
Total college town.
Yeah, that's what we are too. We either got Louisville basketball, we have Lexington, Kentucky Wildcats.
I think if there was ever like an NFL team that popped up around close, they would just burn down the stadium.
I know, right?
That's hardcore college. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's insane. There's a lot of old money in Lexington. That's where all the horse races. Horse race. There is a horse track there, but really the Churchill Downs is in Louisville. But it's like there's a lot of old money here for sure.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, Kentucky does have exactly what you mentioned to its advantage, which probably equates to a lot. Actually, an entrepreneur I know, they were in Lincoln, Nebraska. They moved to Kentucky because they found a niche selling bourbon barrels. And so they literally moved there to get barrels, and I think they turn it into furniture.
That is
there
awesome.
You go. There's geographic as
boom.
Yep.
That's like, I'm gonna have to like, after this, man, I'm definitely gonna be thinking about like this after. Like
Yeah,
that's huge.
yeah,
Because I also, because of being a marketer, right? Like going into that area of things too.
yep.
So as far as, Bulu, where do you feel like it's gonna be in the next 5 or 10 years? You talked briefly about if you were to start marketing
Yeah,
and all that stuff, you go into like the live selling side of things.
yeah, yeah,
I feel like you all, with your all's backgrounds, I feel like you all would not be too far off of assisting with maybe coaching or seeing
yeah,
how that would play out with live selling to get more shipments to fuel, right?
yeah.
And that's where my head goes. But what do you think?
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up. We have a strategic planning with a couple of us this Friday, and it's one of the things that's kind of coming up. It's interesting because there's always what you want to do, and there's what the market wants, and you have to be really cautious not to get those screwed up. You know what I
Okay.
mean? And I would say, for now, we found a niche in fulfillment and doing omni-channel fulfillment for really complicated things. And, the discipline to stay focused and to keep doing what you're doing is like almost harder in a way than, just doing something new. But it's definitely a commitment that I've made to myself and my team, which has paid off. And if anything, I probably shouldn't say this, but it's been a little bit boring over the past year because like, what we're doing in marketing is working. What we're doing with fulfillment, like it's working out.
Yeah.
Like, oh my,
Yeah. What do I do now? What do I do with my
yeah,
hands?
yeah. But it's also like, dude, just shut up and like make money that you have the
Yeah.
opportunity to make. But I think that we will 100% listen for problems within the logistics industry. And I see there being over time in 5 to 10 years, there's like Bulu fulfillment. And then there might be like Bulu marketing, or maybe we've talked about a consumer packaged goods brand like us coming out with our own thing. Also, we've had tons of people that want to pay us for consulting, doing live shipping or live sales for on behalf of our clients has been something that comes up. So, but I think the important thing, at least for me, that before we do anything new, would be I have to the problem has to be worth solving, and I think that is actually at the core of all of our marketing and branding and everything. I had somebody come to me the other day, a really good friend, and they outlaid this huge deck, and they worked with 2 ad agencies, a marketing agency. They essentially pitched me everything. And I looked at it and I was like, yeah, why do I need the thing? And they're like, what? I'm like, why do I need the thing? And they're like, but look at the brand. I'm like, no, that's great. And they're like, well, look at our target audience. I'm like, no, that's great too. And I'm like, but you think like just somebody's going to like the packaging? And like, you can make that happen, but that's really expensive. And so like, I've just always had this ever since we started the company. Actually, it took a few years, but once you understand, if you identify a problem, and I always say like the heavy breath problem where people go, ugh, like if you hear that, that is $1 billion problem. And I think that if you can focus the problem and then the solution and build your marketing and branding around that, it is so much easier than doing it the other way around. So I think whatever we do in the future, it will have to be a problem we're solving. The solution will have to be there, and then we'll have to be able to wrap like a nice marketing
Put a
kind of
nice bow
around
on
that.
it.
Yeah. But I think so many times in marketing, people don't drill down to like, why do people need this thing? Like, what problem is it solving? Or what opportunity does it create? And people forget that part. And it's like, it's just crucial. It's like at the core of the most successful brands in the world.
Yeah, that's crazy. So with with the problem we're solving and you are in logistics, I think immediately streamlining. And I briefly told you about how I actually did the reverse. And as far as just market and sell the thing, but forget to work on the product,
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
bit more. Like it worked out, but then I didn't get ahead of it fast enough.
Right.
Again, another exposure of me.
Yeah.
We fixed it, and now we're doing it right. We're doing more marketing and things like that now to
Mhm.
drive that. But so I watched one of your interviews I brought up to you, and
Mhm.
I want to kind of I want to end this podcast with some solid value here. So you take you take any type of company, I'll say that look at their assembly line, and you're taking out problems. You're simplifying. You're really simplifying. You're taking out to simplify.
Yep.
What does it look like to have a really great creation of an assembly line, and then taking you outside of the business of that streamline?
Yeah, like, are you talking like physically, like assembly line? Or are you talking...
I think it would make sense probably for that, but if you want to dive into both because you've been in the marketing world, but I really think with Bulu, like, you all have a really good multiple different lines of fulfillment, and I think either way would be good.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how I made this connection one day, and I just remember I thought like, holy crap, that's everything. And I remember like, getting my start in e-commerce, and I used to sell on eBay and like worked on our own e-commerce sites. And it was like, always the talk was like reduce clicks, right? And then, I was thinking about different apps and whatever. And it's like, man, the less you can make somebody use their thumb, even on like their phone, like the more likely it is. Like what really separated Instagram from all these other things is just quicker. Like TikTok, like is just reducing clicks, reducing brain power. Like, and then you look at marketing and you're like, almost like, what are you doing? You're trying to reduce like the thought process of like, I want that thing. So like, how can you make it easier? Like, show the delicious burger, show the product, talk about the benefit, right? Don't make them think about it, just make them want it. I worked with a company called Liquid IV, and I remember they were in the science and everything, and I was like, just call it the hydration multiplier. Like Dyson calls it the air multiplier, and like just like simplifying the thought process. And then when you get to the warehouse, an efficient warehouse, if you really look at what matters, it's a reduction of footsteps. That's like where all your money is accrued. And so like I encourage people, whether it's marketing and brain power used, whether it's e-commerce and user interface and clicks used, or just like physically efficiency of like packing, like less steps, less clicks, like less, like less is more. And that formula almost never fails. And even if you're like trying something new, like spend less time working on the damn thing and more time just launch the thing. Just get it out there. It's going to be more painful up front, but it's going to be like, you're going to figure it out way quicker. So I think, just less of everything is so powerful in so many cases. So yeah, it's like show the damn product, that adds up. That time, that money adds up for people that just add more, even services, fewer services, right? So yeah.
Fantastic. I like that. Less is more, less is more, less is more.
Yep,
like,
exactly.
Clearly, I like the marketing side. I'm so happy that there's someone in my life that can slow me down, at least, and tell me that you're talking too much, going too much into detail. Let's make this more clear here, here, and here, and here, and here. And God bless. Thank goodness for you and your wife's partnership. Who's the faster one? Who's like, would that be you? I haven't met her, so I would say I'm gonna assume you said numbers earlier, actually. So I'm gonna say she's probably more of the creative type on that end. So I'll say, do you slow her down?
No, I would say that the way we put it together, she always has said like you're more creative, which is interesting because she does design and all that stuff. But what she would say is I come up with the crazy part quicker, but she actually figures out like how to make it work. So I'm the first person to just throw poop at the wall. And she's the one that's like, okay, let's like organize this and like make it a thing,
Yeah. To blow up your e-commerce brand, just throw poop at the wall and have Bulu carry it out for you.
There you go, man. We'll get it there quicker. We'll get the poop there quicker.
There it is. Cool. So can they go visit Bulu.com if you're a B2B?
I wish it was. We've been in a battle for that for years. It's Bulu.com. Or if you're interested, there's also PaulJarrett.com. But yeah, you can pretty much just search Bulu and find us from there.
Cool. Let me just check this out real fast. Be sure I got it. Got the right Bulu group. I'm pretty sure I do, of course, before I check this out.
There you go.
This is
Yep.
it,
That's
right?
Mr.
So
Paul Konarski.
all right, so like when they schedule a call,
Yep.
what can they expect when they hop on a call with you? What are the first couple steps?
It'll be 30 minutes of us trying to get you to the right fit. So I'd say 1 out of 10 calls make sense for us. And I would actually recommend starting with the pricing calculator. I think
okay, cool.
I think that is a great resource for people. And even if they're looking at any sort of other fulfillment company, we've really made it easy for people. We say like, use this to see how you're doing with ShipBob, right? Or whoever. And then if the pricing is like, makes a sense, and, we say schedule a call, and we do super quick 30-minute calls, and we chunk everything up into super quick painless calls. I think most other companies like us, they do these hour big calls with everybody, and we're just gung ho about get us the right data so we can get you a price.
That's sick. I love it. Awesome.
Thanks, man.
Cool.
Appreciate it.
No problem. Oh man, you are definitely the real deal. Less is
Thanks,
more,
man.
and he has all the cool things on the site. So I know when I'm getting a brand going, I have to have someone to take care of the fulfillment, because I'm telling you, even from the drop shipping stuff, I was like, dude, I don't want to send traffic to a website and hope that they just take care of like the shipping of product, like and also American made, like US local here. Heck yeah. So anyways, Paul, appreciate you having me coming on here. This was
Thank
awesome.
you, man.
I was super excited to have this episode. So
anytime, man.
Awesome. Guys, this is the end of the TruYou Unfiltered podcast. We'll be sure to put a link to Paul's stuff in somewhere in the description, and we will see you guys next time. Peace. Just wait a minute. It's just here we go.